Hello and welcome to the next episode of Eat, Move, Win and the musings of a bullshit queenager. Now, today I am totally fangirling over our guest and she's looking at me like going, oh my God, this girl's crazy. How do I get out of this podcast? But her name is Ali Crawford and you're not going to believe it when I tell you, but she is the fittest woman on earth and she's from Scotland. Which is not something, two statements that go naturally well together. We all have our stereotypes of Scottish people. But Ali, yes, she is. She is the fittest on earth. So, Ali, hi, welcome.
Hi.
It's lovely to have you here. So, Ali is she's a CrossFit athlete. So, I want Ali to start us off by telling us a little bit, what is CrossFit? Because not everybody will know. I don't even know, and I used to do it.
So CrossFit is basically like a methodology of training in a nutshell, which enables people where they want to take it a little bit more serious to compete. It's kind of like known as the sport of fitness, isn't it? So basically, the whole phrase was coined by CrossFit, like the fittest on earth, and essentially it's basically any kind of discipline of fitness. So it covers like cardio fitness, weight training, gymnastics, swimming, like any kind of functional movements, strongman. It's just absolutely anything that you would consider like a way of training, and it combines it all together. So I started CrossFit initially, like most people did, just because I was slightly bored with the gym, slightly bored with doing your usual classes, and I was quite intrigued by CrossFit, and then I quickly realised it was definitely the best way of training for me, in the sense that there's more fun aspect to it because you're constantly learning, and you're constantly being challenged and pushed, which I really like as well. And I like the competitive aspect of it. So even before I started like taking the competition seriously, I was always trying to beat like the boys in the class and things like that. So I realized quite quickly that I was probably going to be one of the people that took CrossFit a little bit more serious than just a way of keeping fit. Like I wanted to compete and stuff like that. But yeah, this year, as you say, I'm a master athlete. So another wonderful thing about CrossFit, in my opinion, is the fact that you can be competitive, but they also enable older folk who are perhaps past their prime to still be competitive. And once you are over age 35, you're considered a master, and they start like branching you off into your age category. So it makes it really nice to be able to benchmark yourself against people like of the same sex, of the same age, as opposed to constantly trying to beat like boys in their 20s, which is still cool to try and do, but it's like nice that you can see where you fall amongst like people that are in your age group. So yeah, this year I qualified for the CrossFit Games, and it was the top 10 in the world for your age that qualify as a master, and I managed to win for my age group. So I am the fittest on earth as described by CrossFit for my age group, and I am from Scotland.
I know, and that's absolutely incredible, because when you look at the caliber of the athletes that you would be competing against, right? I follow the sport of CrossFit, and I have been a CrossFit athlete, not to the same level by any stretch of the imagination, but there are some actual legends of the sport that you would have been up against, standing on the podium against as well. So, you know, it's just, did you have to pinch yourself when you were up in that podium? Like, oh my God, what just happened?
I really did. I mean, I think it was quite a funny one for me. So I always had the goal, once I started taking it seriously, like I realised when I became a master that I didn't know at the time, because obviously you're just benchmarking yourself against everyone. So I always did quite well in like the Open, which is like the first stage of the kind of the route into the CrossFit Games if you're serious about it. And I always did really well, but I was always a good bit older than like the full-time athletes taking it really seriously. So when I first fell into a master category, I think I finished 26th in the world that year, and that was just purely from doing like classes and just a little bit extra training with my coaches. And I remember my coach saying at the time, like, you know, if you took this a little bit more seriously, then you could maybe qualify for the CrossFit Games. And at that point, certainly from Scotland, like nobody had been to the CrossFit Games, and it was almost like a bit of a pipe dream. You didn't actually think that anybody would make the games. So I started training a little bit harder, and I just missed out. That would have been in 2016, and then I just missed out in 2017. At that point, it was the top 20 that went to the games, and I finished 21st.
Oh,
And then
gutting.
I know, so I was so gutted, and I actually was like, oh, you know what? That has been a lot of work this year, a lot of sacrifices for what? So I was like, nah, I can't be bothered putting the same effort levels in to try again. And in 2018, I made it through to kind of the semi, like the kind of the stage before the games again. And when the workouts were released, they were all really good workouts for me, in the sense that there was I still have some weaknesses in CrossFit that kind of, they don't trip me up the same way as they used to, but certainly I would be as competitive in them. But when the
What's
workouts
your what are your weaknesses, would you say?
I would say my weaknesses were probably ring muscle ups, and strict handstand push-ups. What else? I'm not brilliant. Well, no, I'm kind of competitive in my age group, I suppose, with a heavy barbell. My main thing was always my strong points were always like, I'm really, really fit. So, and I'm really, I don't give up very easy. I really know how to push hard. So, I always did really well on workouts whereby it was just like, go hard, as hard as you can. The higher skill stuff, I always struggled a bit more. And I think potentially as well, like obviously CrossFit's been pretty big in America for a long time. So a lot of the American ladies my age are actually really highly skilled. They're a lot more skillful than perhaps I was at that point in time. So that was why I always struggled with the higher skill movements, like a chest to bar pull up and stuff. Like these girls had been doing these for a lot longer. Like we were still, I personally feel Scotland at that point was still at quite the early stages of CrossFit.
Yeah.
And we were kind of still trying to figure out the best techniques and how to teach it and how to coach it and stuff. But when the workouts came out in 2018, my coach actually phoned me and he's like, you're actually going to make the games this year. Like
That's
you couldn't have asked,
confidence, isn't it?
you could have asked for better workouts if you'd written them yourself. And I did actually qualify that year. So when I went in 2018, I was literally like, oh man, I can't believe I'm here. And I didn't actually go to compete. Like, if you like, it was almost like I was quite intimidated to be there.
It must be terrifying. Like you've got all those big people that have been in the sport for a while. You've got, it's quite it's quite an intimate sport, despite it being really big as well. Like fans are totally invested in all the athletes as well. So it's like you must have just been like that. Oh my god, big wide eyes.
I just couldn't believe I was there. I was literally like, I honestly, as much of a defeatist as this sounds, I was like, I actually don't care if I even come last. Like I've literally made the CrossFit Games. Like who cares what happens from here? And it was a wonderful experience, but I was definitely overwhelmed by the whole thing. And I was definitely like, I'm quite a confident person, and when I line up in competition, obviously I get the usual nerves like everybody would in competition, but like I do believe in myself, and I do know I'm capable of like pushing hard. And like I would say I was quite confident in my ability. But at the CrossFit Games in 2018, I was very much like, I'm not as good as everybody here. Like I felt I did have imposter syndrome, to be honest. It was almost like, because like I'm not a full-time athlete by any stretch of the imagination. I literally do the classes, like my coach does program some extra stuff for me, but like a lot of these girls owned their own gyms or worked in their own CrossFit in a CrossFit gym and didn't have jobs, and was like they had sponsorships that we were paying for certain things. Even as a master athlete, they still had like sponsorships, and they were probably like training like a full-time athlete. So in that respect, I was like, what the heck am I doing here? Like I literally just do the 5 p.m. WODs each night and then a couple of extra squats a week. So I didn't feel like, not that I didn't feel that I belonged, but I was very much like, I've like totally exceeded everybody's expectations by getting here, including my own, and what happens from here is a bonus. And then I suppose after that experience, it's almost like once you experience something, you gain confidence from it. Like I kind of left thinking, you know what, I kind of undersold myself a bit there. I probably could have done a bit better in a couple of WODs if I'd been a bit more confident or a bit more positive about it. And then in 2021, obviously we'd gone through COVID where the gyms had been shut down for a long time. And I'd kept on training as much as I could during that period. Just had quite a lot of equipment at home and stuff like that. So I'd kept my fitness levels up, and I was falling into an older age group category. So I would have been the youngest in the category. So going into the games, like I made the goal at the beginning of 2021 to try and make it back again. But it was a very different mindset that I had at that point. It was very much like, I feel like I'm going to go and compete this time. And
did you have to do anything special to try and get yourself into that mindset? Was it just something that came naturally?
It's just something that came naturally. Like I do speak about this to my husband does like a lot of kind of mindset coaching actually. And I never really, and I I've never had any kind of help from him. But once I set my mind to something, it's like I'm very much like I know what I want to do. And I think once I've decided something, not that I believe in like manifesting or anything like that, but certainly in 2021, like I didn't have that same buzz of I've made the games because I'd already done that. So I needed something else to focus on. So I was like, I definitely did have this feeling that I was going to train super hard. And then I kind of felt as though for my age, I know I'm really, really fit and I know I'm strong. So I kind of felt if I put in the training and dialed in and my nutrition, there's no reason why I couldn't podium. Like there's no reason why I couldn't be as good, if not better, than everybody else against me. So I definitely had a far more positive mindset going into 2021. And I did. I finished second that year, and it was just phenomenal being in the podium. Like I know we've spoken about like, oh, silver medal's not great, but for me, like it was a medal from the CrossFit Games. I was literally like, I can't believe I'm standing with a Scotland flag at the cross, even though it's as a master. I was like, I can't believe I've actually got like a medal from the CrossFit Games. So I like, in fairness, with hindsight, I should have won it. I was very close
Should
to
you?
it.
Was it?
I was beat by Annie Sakamoto, who's like CrossFit royalty.
Yeah,
But
she's the OG.
yeah, she's OG. So I'm like, I'll take that. But and I made a couple of mistakes in workouts where it cost me the gold medal.
Oh.
And when I was going into the final, I probably could have won the final event. But also, if I had gone for it and blew up, like it was so tight at the top that I was sitting in, I think I was sitting in first or second going into the final. But I knew that unless I finished first or second, I would drop. Like you kind of know in CrossFit, like you're saying, it's a bit of a community, and as much as like it's followed by so many people, like I knew the strengths and weaknesses of my competitors really well. So, and I knew the final workout was really good for some people, not so good for others. It was really good for me, but I was really scared that if I really went for it for the win to try and win the gold medal, that I would end up blown up and then ended up. I basically took it. I could have gambled and gone for the gold, but there was a risk I would have fallen out of medals. And for me in 2021, just being on the podium is more important than it being a gold medal. I just wanted to podium at the games. I just wanted that medal. So as much as I came second, I probably should have came first. I was still really happy. And then obviously went back last year. And
so
again,
what did that do for you? Like coming second, then like you come home. Like I can imagine that must put a rocket right up your arse for the next year.
It really did, yeah. Like, as I say, there's not one part of me that was disappointed with coming second, even though deep down I knew I should have won it. I was just so delighted to have a medal. But certainly going into the 2022 season, I knew I had the ability to win. So like that was the goal, was to win last year. And obviously I did. But to be fair, on paper, probably the workouts weren't as good for me
really?
in 2022 than they were in 21. But yeah, it just gives you confidence each time. Like obviously, like I said, like getting to the games was a goal. I made that goal. Like so once I'd achieved that, it gives you a bit more confidence. You're like, so at the time you feel like I don't belong here. Like I'm an imposter. But then after the event, you're like, oh, I really did belong there. So
Yeah.
the next time I ever make it back again, like I'm going to try and get in top 5. And then you like when I podiumed, I was like, well, there's actually no reason why I couldn't win this. So kind of your confidence just gains, like gets greater and greater. But yeah. But
But we
it's
had
sorry,
I
carry
had a
on.
guest. I had a guest on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she's a mindset coach and psychologist. And we're talking about imposter syndrome. She's like, so many people give themselves that tag so that they don't have to go and keep trying. And you did the complete opposite. You're like, oh yeah, I feel a little bit out of place. And then you did it and then proved to yourself that you totally were not out of place. And you're like, well, actually, I'm going to go back and win the entire thing.
Yeah. I think you definitely need obviously CrossFit is one of these things, like there's no two workouts the same, so a lot of the time it is just like what comes up and how like you probably know sometimes you've not had a chance, like we certainly at the games you don't get a chance to practice workouts, so you don't actually know how you're going to do. So like confidence is a huge thing. Like if you go in with an element of doubt, then that definitely would play a part in how you attack a workout, or like how hard you're willing to push like midway through, like scared in case it's going to like fall apart at the end. But I think so you definitely need a positive mindset going into workouts, which I always had. But I certainly think that, like, I do think success breeds success. Like Scotland's gone from strength to strength in the last couple of years in terms of like young athletes coming through, and so many people now are taking it really and are training full time, are taking it really serious, and we've got like
that wee girl last weekend. She was incredible, wasn't she?
Phenomenal. I mean, like, but it's one of them probably, like, I remember like when I was like just starting off in CrossFit, nobody from Scotland had really done, like, there was a girl, Steph Decker, from CrossFit Glasgow, and she was like the best by a country mile in the country. And she made regionals, which was like the equivalent then of semis. But like it was only Steph that ever did that, and everybody always used to be like, oh, maybe she's a bit of a freak talent type thing. Whereas I feel now there's just more and more people that are doing really well. So it's almost like I always felt like I trained quite a lot with my coaches. So my coaches were like two boys that were like 10 years younger than me, ex-rugby players, super duper fit. So I was constantly chasing them and trying to keep up with them. And we were all like very competitive against one another. And that, by the very nature of just doing that daily, you just get better and better and better. And I think that now there's so many people that are taking CrossFit seriously and are training together, that everybody's making everybody better. So who knows, like the future, I think for Scottish CrossFit's extremely positive.
So going back to your training, so obviously you don't get to go to the CrossFit Games by doing like a couple of workouts a week and maybe doing a couple of stretches. How much time do you actually invest in training, like in the throes of it? Like maybe not straight after the games when you might be just drinking wine all the time to chill out.
I mean, certainly for me, and I suppose everyone's different, like I train relatively hard all year round. I'd take it like a couple of weeks off, like obviously for holidays and stuff, but I like to be doing something. But in terms of intensity levels, certainly for me, it always kind of starts come January. So kind of like after Christmas, because the Open is the first stage and that's like the end of February. So I would start increase some intensity of my training like in January, and then obviously train through the Open. And then it's normally that's normally kind of 3 weeks, February through March. And then quarterfinals are normally April, semi-finals May, and then the games are normally the end of July, August. So like the first kind of 8 to 9 months of the year, it's full on. Training wise, like I follow Base Compete, which is like my gym's kind of competitive program. And to be fair, like at my age, I've got like a family, I have a job. Like I know a lot of programs for highly competitive CrossFit. It's like you're really needing like 3 hours a day. And to be perfectly honest, Emma, I don't have 3 hours a day. So for me, the Base Compete really works because it's probably, you could rattle through it if you needed to in 90 minutes. And that kind of suits me a bit better. So normally I would train anywhere like between 90 minutes to like 2.5 hours a day, like 5 days a week. And then I would fully rest on a Sunday and have an active recovery day. Probably normally on a Wednesday I would have active recovery, but that's just what fitted with my lifestyle. No boozing, don't really eat that much rubbish, just like taking it a little bit more serious. But certainly it's not, I wouldn't say I was super like serious about it in that sense. Like I still, like I didn't have like a nutrition company sponsor me or anything like that. Like, and I would still go out to events, but like maybe not drink very much and that kind of thing. Still had tried to live a life. But I've got my youngest kids, so I was kind of saying to you earlier, so my youngest has got quite significant additional support needs. So he takes like a lot of time and stuff like that. And although he's 14, he's not like able to like look after himself or anything like that. So like I would like everything's like very much like relying on husbands and other sons to juggle childcare and things like that and work. So it is fairly hard going. I would say like I'm actually injured just now. And I think that probably, I think CrossFit does take its toll on the body, and I've probably been
my shoulder and glutes are testament to that.
hips and shoulders. Yeah, I think for me, I would say I've been training really hard at really high intensity for about 5 years now, and I do think that I've hit a point where I need probably a wee 6-month break from the intensity of it all. So I got injured shortly before semi-finals. So like I'm not going back to the games this year, and I'm just trying to take this opportunity to be a bit kinder to my body, a bit more bodybuilding, a bit more.
Do you find that quite hard when, especially if you know that you've got a good engine and you know that you're good at pushing, and like when you're good at something, you like doing it. So to have to take the foot off the gas, how are you going to cope with it?
It's hard. I think like I'm still managing to train, but I like all the fun stuff. Like, so I like your Olympic weightlifting and your gymnastics and like the intensity, like you say, like the full send workouts and where you're lying on your back for 30 minutes afterwards. I love all that. So it's definitely at the moment, like I am doing like more bodybuilding stuff. I love accessory work. I can only like I ruptured my bicep tendon, so and I opted against surgery. So I just need to be really slow and careful and building back up strength. And hopefully like I'll get back to my old strength levels, but who knows. But so yeah, it's hard, but mostly the hard, like I'm still training, I'm running, I'm biking, I'm squatting, I'm deadlifting, I'm bodybuilding, but it's not as fun as CrossFit. Like I find the CrossFit style of training a lot more fun. But I feel it's what my body needs at the moment. So just need to listen to it.
It is definitely like before I started CrossFit, it was really mainly bodybuilding stuff that I would do. I would do the odd like cardio session in the circuits class and stuff. But once like I'm quite not like you in any respect, but I like the go hard, full send and have that like I can lift that, no bother, and then everything else is telling you no, don't do that, don't do that.
Here's me with my 10 kilogram dumbbells doing my tempo bench press. I'm like, oh, this is so boring. But hey,
so are you going to be watching the games this year then if you're not taking part? How's that
watch it. So yeah, I'm friendly with there's a girl, Kelly Friel from Southampton, so she's
also quite famous.
She's a phenomenal CrossFit athlete. So she's just recently came up into my age category. So she's like, I would be like the third year of my age category this year. So she's in the first year. So she'll win it this year. I'm going to call it now.
Putting your money on it.
No disrespect to the other competitors, but she's just a completely different level. So I'll certainly be watching Kelly. Yeah. And then my gym's also running a competition called Proving Grounds. So Ali and Sai have ran competitions in the past, and they've kind of got back into it since COVID, and they're going to try and make it a really big kind of fixture for Scottish CrossFit. So it's going to be at the SEC in Glasgow, which is huge. And they've managed to attract some pretty big names who are going to be signing up for it. And I think that'll be a huge event. So that's at the end of October. So at the moment, Kelly and I have, we thought we would enter, it's a same-sex pairs competition. So Kelly and I have entered, but just the RX category, not the Masters category. So, which would be really cool because obviously we would have a combined age. We worked it out that we would have a combined age of 92. Which when you're up against girls who probably their combined age is younger than me, and it's so I mean I don't imagine we would win it, but I think it would be really cool to showcase like two older women, if you like, thrown down against the young full-time athletes, and I'm pretty sure we'd hold our own. But at the moment, like we'll see, like with my injury, I'm not terribly sure I'll be in a position this year to be back lifting heavy and stuff. So I'm hopeful, and we're still hoping to do that. But that would be the real goal for this year, is to try and get fit. Not fit as in my fitness levels, but healthy.
Healthy.
That I would be able to compete with Kelly in that competition.
Oh, that'd be fab. That's really cool. And if you're thinking of entering the RX division, maybe don't. There's no point.
There's no, well, remember that we're old ladies compared to a lot of these young folk that are entering.
I know.
Like,
Well, do you know, like I was watching, was it the games last year? I can't remember. And in the elite level, you've got all these teenagers that are competing, like 17, 18-year-old who are competing against girls like kind of mid-20s up to the early 30s, I suppose. And they're just holding their own. And it's absolutely like, oh my God, like you're not even fully grown yet. And look at the capabilities that you have. And then obviously this year, there's been quite a lot of them having to pull out for burnout reasons, for injury. And it's kind of weighing up, you know, what is your longevity, rather like beasting it when you're super young. And that's a whole different conversation. Right. Question for you.
Yes.
A lot of the people listening don't do CrossFit, probably have never done CrossFit. What would you say to someone who was like, that sounds really quite cool, I want to give it a shot, but it seems quite scary?
I would say, oh gosh, like genuinely, and this honestly isn't just me trying to bum up CrossFit, but I mean, find yourself a good box.
That's a gym.
As a gym. So find yourself a good gym. So all CrossFit classes are coach led. So for me, even for the absolute beginner, it's the safest way to start training with weights and with different movements, because as opposed to a lot of these people that are like at like kind of commercial gyms, and they're just basically going on to TikTok to try and figure out how to do a movement, and then they've got their own way of trying to teach themselves. I feel it's a lot safer if you have a good CrossFit gym with really good coaches. And to be fair, I would say most Scottish, well, most UK gyms, I don't know anything about English gyms, but certainly of all the Scottish gyms that I know, CrossFit gyms, the coaching standards fairly high. And all classes are coach led. So it's almost like they take you through the fundamentals, the foundations, and you're really well looked after. Like if you walked into a class and you were a newbie, if you like, you wouldn't be singled out, but certainly the coach would have an eye on you more than they would have, like, for example, somebody like myself who's been doing it for a while and kind of knows what they're doing. So it's a great way to learn how to move safely and learn how to move correctly. And I always feel, because they're a lot smaller than commercial gyms, it is like you've probably heard, like, people like, oh, CrossFit is such a cult. But people get the reason why people say that is because it's such a fun way to work out. It's a small kind of, you don't really tend to find gyms that have got any more than kind of 300, 400, 500 people in them. So everybody knows everyone. The classes are max sizes, so you get to know, it's never like a big, huge group of people. So if you're in a class, the maximum you've got is maybe 20 people. So you get to know everyone. So then you develop these friendships, and so it does end up a really nice community, and it's addictive, and it's a good way to get into the fitness.
It does get you fit quick. And that was the thing that really, when I first started doing CrossFit, I was fit and I was strong. Well, I thought I was fit, and I was strong, but within the first couple of sessions, I was like, oh my God, I've got zero fitness, like compared to what I thought I had.
It does highlight weaknesses, doesn't it?
Like, it does very much highlight your weaknesses, doesn't it? Like, oh, you want to go run? Oh, damn.
Yeah. But it's a lot on the body, so it is important, like, particularly if you're starting out when you're a little bit older. I think it's a bit easier if you start it in your early 20s, whatever. But if you're a little bit older and you're starting it, like, it is important that it's trying to find the time to do everything, but it is important that you do all your mobilizing and stretching and all that kind of thing to kind of keep injuries at bay. But like I say, it's trying to fit everything in. If you're doing 5 classes a week and you've got a family and you've got a job, and then you need to be doing like 2 stretch classes a week, it's a lot to fit in. So you just
recovery as well. I think, like, when you're in your 40s, your actual recovery, like making sure you're sleeping right and managing stress levels and doing proper self-care, is as important as the effort that you put in at the gym.
And harder to do that. It's harder to do that if you
it is, isn't it?
in your 40s, because you have all these kind of extra responsibilities, I suppose, than you had when you were like in your early 20s.
Yeah.
And I think you can only, what I'm realizing, like I was always like, I never had like used my age as a barrier, and I would never enter a master competition unless it was like kind of the games or like a European kind of level. But like locally, like in the UK, if I was doing a competition, I would rather just throw down with the young ones and see how I land. But I think more and more now, I'm like, okay, it makes a difference being 47 when you're up against 22-year-olds.
No, and I bet you don't feel it either. I bet you don't even recognise, like internally going, you're 47. I bet you still feel like you're 25 at times.
Totally. It's like when like they talk about tennis players and all that being footballers being passed at 35. I'm like, crikey, I hadn't even started competitive sport till I was 37.
You're like that. Women up, you. Come on, sometimes.
But yeah, no, I think it does make a difference. There's only so much you can be in self-denial about it, but it does make a difference.
Right, okay, final question. This is an easy one. Where can people find out more about you if they want to go and hunt you down and stalk you like I did?
I'm not really brilliant at the social media, I have to admit. Like, I do enjoy a bit of Instagram. So yeah, Ali Crawford 1304, I think it is, on Instagram. Not that at the moment, especially with my injury, you won't find much workout videos on there. It's mostly just me going out on the piss.
Oh, bicep curls on this gammy arm of hers.
But yeah, I do a bit of Instagram. I enjoy. I think it's good to like follow people on Instagram. Like I feel when people are like, I do feel not that like I have any position to like be like influential to people, but I'm so far off being an influencer. It's scary, but I do think that I have quite a positive image in that I am an older woman and I do kind of train to quite a high level, and I'm all about like strength and like basically being powerful as opposed to like trying to like fit like a standard shape size that's maybe not really realistic. So I do think that more people like that on social media and less filtering and unrealistic goals would be nice, especially for younger girls. I think it must be hard being a young girl now.
Yeah, I think it's really important because like I speak to a lot of women and it's kind of this mind, not I've given up now because I've hit my 40s, but it's kind of that almost, well, the best is behind me, and you've just proven like the best body, best strength, the best ability is like way past your 40s. So it's like that. I think that's so inspiring. I absolutely love it. All right, my lovely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for listening. If you want to find out more about Ali, you can find her on Instagram, or you can ask me to ask her a question because I'm going to make her my best friend now.
Thank you so much, Emma.